There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with a really, for me, fun to make video that doesn't require any planning. It could be weaponized into a tag, I suppose, so feel free to do that if you want. But I'm just calling it the last 10 books I put on my Goodreads TBR tag. Because I want to talk about them. They're books that are new to me. Some of them are brand new or forthcoming, but you know, a lot of them are backlist as well, and I just want to talk about them because I'm in the mood to talk books. Imagine that. And this might be a video you want to not skip around in. So, the first one I added on November 24th, the first of the 10. I'm going back, starting with the one that I added the earliest. But there was a whole bunch I added on November 24th, or at least more than one, but one of them, the one I'm going to talk to you about, is from Australia. I wonder if Scott and Nelle are aware of this writer. His name is Paul Dalla Rosa, and his short story collection is called An Exciting and Vivid Inner Life. And I can't, for the life of me, remember how I found out about it, but I think it was on an Instagram post, and I just saw it and thought, ooh, that sounds interesting. Let's see. It's a debut collection of short stories. Unsparing and tender, set in late-stage capitalism. Compared to Lucia Berlin, Otessa Moschweg. Paul Dalla Rosa is a writer based in Melbourne, which is why I wonder if he might be drinking buddies with Scott and Nelle. Now, the cover's kind of interesting. I think it's a queer short story as well. Let's see. Yes. So I believe he is family. Oh, my goodness. Speak of the Devil. Nelle has reviewed it. Is it the same Nelle? Oh, I don't know if it's the same Nelle. No, I don't. I think it's a different Nelle. What a coincidence. Another Australian friend of mine on Goodreads whose name is Janelle gave it 3 stars because it was depressing. That doesn't sound like our Nelle, does it? The next one is a queer novel from Canada that I just found out about. I think another novel by the same author I'd added to my TBR some months ago, and then I found out about this other one. And it is called The Family Way by Christopher DiRaddo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, an Italian-Canadian gay male writer. And I found out about this a bite-sized book chat. My last episode of a bite-sized book chat was from the same featured a book from the same publisher, Vehicle Press. This came out December of last year, apparently, and the other one by the same author, The Geography of Pluto, 2014. It's about a gay man who turns 40 and 2 his lesbian friends ask him to supply a certain substance so they can have a family together, the 3 of them, I think. So that's why it's called The Family Way. Next is one that somebody on Twitter, I don't remember who, brought to my attention. This is a work of nonfiction by a Polish writer. It is called Roosters Crow, Dogs Cry by Wojciech Tochman. Let's see, I can't find the first name, but in Polish. Tochman in Polish, maybe. Somebody will help me. Now, why did I add it? So, Wojciech Tochman is a Polish journalist who has written books such as Like Eating a Stone, Surviving the Past in Bosnia. And this latest one, which came out in English translation in 2022, is about people with mental illness in Cambodia. Wow, okay, that sounds fascinating. The next one is is it a novel? Yes, it is. It is a novel in translation from the French by the famous French writer Marguerite Duras. And this is a late novel. I think it's more metafiction. I added this because I was talking with one of my students in Tokyo on during a Zoom class, and there were no other students had showed up. So in those situations, we often just talk about what we're reading or whatever. And he is, in addition to studying English and Thai, he is mastering the French language, and so he's reading Marguerite Duras in the original French. And while I was talking to him, I looked her up because I knew that she had one that I was really familiar with, but wasn't all that familiar with her.
Marguerite Duras.
Marguerite Duras. I think that's what I said, isn't it? Close enough? Maybe not. So while I was talking to my student, I was also looking at her Wikipedia page, and the one that everybody knows about, The Lover. The Lover is the one everybody knows about, right? I haven't read it. I haven't read anything by her. But I saw in the little biography part of it that as her health began to decline in the 80s, she began a relationship, whatever that means, with a gay actor named Yann Andréa, who helped her through her illness, through her health difficulties. Basically nursed her back to health, it sounds like, because when did she die? She died in 1996. So then she wrote a book about their companionship and stuff called Yann Andréa Steiner. So I don't know if it's autofiction or what the hell it is, but it sounded interesting to me. So that's how that one got on my TBR. And it is available in English translation, published by Archipelago Books, and the translator is Mark Polizzotti. Next is a book by an American-Israeli writer, Moriel Rothman-Zecher, who I first heard about. I didn't remember the name until I started doing a deep dive on this new book that Natalie Meree had talked about. A book. I can't remember if she read it or she finished it, but she brought a book of his to my attention. And that one was called Sadness is a White Bird, if I'm not mistaken. His works are written in English. And this one, which just came out in October of this year, is called Before All the World. It's a queer novel, so it has queer characters. It's set in Philadelphia, 1930s, with three main characters in the shadow of the pogroms back in somewhere in the Russian Empire. It's a fictional town, so I don't know where in the Russian Empire, but there was a pogrom. And one of the main characters, everybody in his village and his entire family except him were murdered. And one of the characters is black. Definitely sounds like a Sean book. Here is another one that I found out about either on Twitter or Instagram. I think I found out about it on Instagram, and then usually when I add a book to my TBR on Goodreads spits out a tweet to say that I've done so, and I got a lot of likes from the literati of bookish Twitter. This is called The Swallows of Lunetto by Joseph Fasano. Does not appear to be translated, and it was published just a few weeks ago, November 25th, 2022, by Magdalen House. It is about a young couple escaping from Italian fascism at the end of the Second World War. Joseph Fasano is a maybe Italian-American, but certainly an American novelist. This is his second novel, and he's written a bunch of poetry. Next is one that's not coming out until next year. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. I think the last 2 years I've done a video about my most anticipated reads of the coming year, and I love doing them, but then I read so few of them that I'm not sure I'm going to do one. I read so few of them in the year that they're published that I'm just not sure if I'm just not kind of masturbating about books I'd like to read when I got all these to read. Not that, some of you wouldn't be interested in that kind of a video. Did I just say the M word? Anyways, this is one that definitely caught my eye. It's called Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. It's a debut, and it's a supernatural horror novel, which is the furthest thing from what I'm interested in, except the protagonist is a Cree woman, and her dreams lead her on a journey that leads her to confront not only the violence perpetrated on her family, but the violence that is colonialism in general. She wakes up with a severed crow's head in her hands. Bad Cree. Coming out early in 2023, January, and apparently the setting is Alberta, Canada. So who is Jessica Johns? She's a Cree auntie and member of Sucker Creek First Nation in northern Alberta. Well, yeah, that is one I will definitely try. I'm not sure about supernatural horror. If I have to read horror, supernatural horror I tend to be more into. I'm definitely not into anything other kind of horror, whatever kind of other horror there is, but I've always been a little bit into the supernatural. Maybe I'm a warlock, actually, so I'm going to try that one. Oh, she's had a bunch of stuff anthologized. Lindy has read a previous book of her poetry and loved it. That was called How Not to Spill. Next is a forthcoming novel by Emma Cline. I didn't read Emma Cline's previous novel, The Girls. I had no interest in it. I'm just not interested in that kind of a story. But I did read one of her short stories in an anthology, Best American Stories or something, and I really loved that story. So last year, Heidi of My Reading Life and I read her new story collection called Daddy, and we loved it. I loved it. I think Heidi loved it, maybe a little less than me, but it's only got a 3.3 rating on Goodreads, and I thought it was one of the best short story collections I read last year. And I may be in the wrong year, maybe 2 years ago. But so she's a beautiful writer. I think she's one of those writers that lots of people love to hate, and I don't like to get into that thing. It's kind of like the hatred people love to flaunt on BookTube about how much they hate Sally Rooney, just that kind of snobby bullshit. And I mean, so it's fine if you don't like her writing, that's fine. But there is kind of a trendiness to it that I hate. And there's a similar thing about Emma Cline, I think, and she's a beautiful writer. So her new novel, it's called The Guest, coming out in May of next year. I think it's about fake identity. Like, I don't want to read the synopsis to myself. I don't want to know too much about it. But the protagonist is pretending to be someone she's not. The premise of it doesn't sound interesting, but her writing will possibly carry me into it. At least it's not about a serial killer like the Charles Manson thing. I just don't give a fuck about that stuff. I don't want to read about it. I don't want to admit that it exists, and I get it the fuck out of my fiction. But this one I will try because it's Emma Cline. Okay, well, this next one sounds absolutely fascinating. I saw it on the new release section at the branch library down the street yesterday. Didn't sign it out, but put it on my TBR. And I hate what Goodreads has done, but Goodreads is not the only place online that has done this. They have compressed the title into one word when in fact it's very clearly 4 words in the title. I can't find any pronunciation help for the title, so I will just read it phonetically. Odagahodhes. Subtitle, Reflecting on Our Journey. And then Guy Hwako, and then AKA. AKA is not the title, but it's Guy Hwako, Norma Jacobs, and the Circles of Odagahodhes. Edited by Timothy B. Leduc. So, this is a work of Indigenous nonfiction set in Canada. And it's centered around this elder from the Cayuga Nation, Guy Hwako, or also Norma Jacobs. And I'm just going to read you the first sentence that is a quote from her, that is the premise for the book. She says, "We have forgotten about that sacred meeting space between the settler ship coming to Turtle Island, and the indigenous canoe, Odagahodhes, where we originally agreed on the 2-row, and where today we need to return to talk about the impacts of its violation." I don't need to know any more than that. If you need to know more than that, click on the synopsis on the Goodreads description, but this is a book that I absolutely need to read. I didn't know about it until I saw it in the new release section, and I bet Lindy will have it read by next Tuesday. It came out in June from McGill Queen's University Press. That sounds amazing. And the last one is called Little Boy by John Smith. What a name. What an author name. John Smith. And this is from Boiler House Press. James from Adelaide has raved about them. I can't really remember what James said about them, but anyway, he loves them. He talked about one of their other books, Gentleman Overboard by Herbert Clyde Lewis, in a bite-sized book chat. So I'll put a link to that, and you can go and see what he said about the publisher. But this one is, I think, their newest publication, Little Boy. This came out in April of this year. It is set in colonial Africa. A small boy is found in a mine in what is known as the Belgian Congo at that time. It's 1935. And it sets off an international intrigue, an international sensation to do with colonialism and science and politics. And that is the story. Now, this is a white guy, so I'm a little bit suspicious. But It has connections to the atomic bomb research and so on. So the story must extend beyond 1935. I don't even know if the boy is black. Is he African boy or a white boy? I don't know much about this. I know enough that I'm intrigued. John Smith is a white author. Oh, so this was published in April 2022, but this John Smith died in 1994. He was the leader of the British Labour Party from 1992 to 1994. So he's famous in the UK, I would assume. If anybody for people that were alive at that time, I was alive at that time, but I wasn't paying such close attention to British politics. And this is his novel. So I don't know, I don't know, but sounds interesting, maybe. So that is the 10th book that I have added to my TBR since November 24th. And here is where I hope, if you are still paying attention and haven't stopped watching this video, I'm going to have a giveaway. I couldn't do anything for my 5th anniversary, whenever that was, September or something, because I was so poor. But I'm not as poor as I was then now, and I'd like to do a little giveaway. Here is a bookish coffee mug that was a Christmas present from my mum last year. And I've never used it. I don't like it. Mum knows I don't like it. I didn't tell her till a few days ago, because I can't drink coffee out of a black mug. I discovered this bizarre coffee trait, coffee-related personality trait many years ago when I bought a black mug and tried to drink coffee out of it. I can't taste coffee out of a black mug. If I can't see the coffee, I can't taste it. My mugs have to be white or some other color, light color, where I can see the coffee in the cup, because otherwise it eradicates any taste sensations while I'm consuming my coffee. So I don't want to keep this for that reason only. It's a beautiful mug, very bookish. So I'm having a giveaway. Here's the deal. I have told you about 10 books that I've added to my TBR. A certain number of them I have already purchased online, or one is coming to me as a review copy. But the total number of books that are in the mail, or will soon be in the mail coming to me, out of those 10, what is your guess of that number? I don't need you to tell me which ones you think I've purchased or will otherwise have coming in the mail to me. I need a number. 1 book, 2 books, 5 books, 7 books. And I guess the first person who guesses how many of these books I've either ordered or a publisher is sending to me for review, I will close the contest down as soon as I get the correct number, and then I will mail this brand new coffee mug, never been used, still in the box where my mom ordered it online, to you as a giveaway. In the meantime, I'd also be interested in other comments. Have you read any of these books? Do any of these books sound interesting to you? Thanks for watching.